The Strait of Hormuz is not merely a stretch of water, it is the world's most vital energy artery. This narrow channel, connecting the Persian Gulf to the open sea, is a critical choke point for global oil and gas supplies. Day after day, a procession of supertankers navigates its waters, carrying a staggering volume of the world's energy resources. For decades, the uninterrupted flow of this traffic has been a cornerstone of global economic stability, ensuring that factories can run, homes can be heated, and vehicles can move across continents. The security of this passage is paramount, a constant concern for world leaders, military planners, and economists alike. Its strategic location makes it an unavoidable point of transit for many of the world's largest energy producers. Approximately 1/5 of the entire world's daily oil consumption passes through this strait. That amounts to over 20 million barrels of petroleum liquids every single day. Furthermore, about 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas, primarily from Qatar, also makes its journey through this passage. The sheer volume of energy transiting this small geographical area is difficult to overstate. Any disruption, however brief, would send immediate and severe shockwaves through international markets. The global economy is deeply interconnected, and its dependence on the smooth operation of the Strait of Hormuz makes it incredibly vulnerable to any instability in the region, a fact that is not lost on the nations that border its turbulent waters. The primary destinations for this energy are the booming economies of Asia. Countries such as China, India, Japan, and South Korea receive more than 80% of the oil and gas that traverses the strait. Their industrial might and the daily lives of their citizens are directly powered by the resources that flow through this passage. While Western nations are less directly reliant, the interconnected nature of the global economy means they are far from immune. A sudden spike in energy prices would have a cascading effect, driving up inflation, slowing economic growth, and creating political challenges for governments around the world. The strait is therefore a point of shared global interest, and consequently, a point of shared global vulnerability. Given its immense strategic value, the Strait of Hormuz has long been a flashpoint for geopolitical tension. Its narrowest point is only about 21 miles wide, making it relatively easy to monitor, and for a determined actor, potentially disrupt. For Iran, which controls the northern coastline, this geographical reality provides a powerful tool of asymmetrical leverage. The ability to threaten the closure of this waterway gives Tehran a significant card to play in its dealings with regional rivals and global superpowers. It is a threat that commands immediate international attention, forcing other nations to take notice and carefully consider their next moves in the high-stakes chess game of Middle Eastern politics. Iran's recent threats to close the Strait of Hormuz are not born from a vacuum. They are a direct and forceful response to what Tehran perceives as acts of aggression by its long-standing adversaries, the United States and Israel. Following a series of devastating airstrikes in mid-2025 on its nuclear facilities and a military installation, the Iranian leadership felt compelled to demonstrate its capacity to strike back. The threat of closure is a powerful form of retaliation, a way for Iran to signal that attacks on its sovereignty will not go unanswered. It is a strategic move designed to inflict pain, not on the battlefield, but in the boardrooms and government halls of Western capitals by disrupting their economic stability. Beyond simple retaliation, the threat serves as a crucial tool of economic leverage. The leaders in Tehran are acutely aware of the global economy's delicate dependence on the oil that flows through the strait. By threatening to turn off the tap, Iran can create immediate panic in global energy markets, causing prices to surge dramatically. This economic chaos is a weapon aimed at pressuring the United States and its allies to reconsider their policies of sanctions and military pressure. It is a calculated gamble that the economic cost of a disrupted strait will be too high for the West to bear, forcing them to de-escalate and back down from further confrontation. The saber rattling also serves a vital purpose in demonstrating Iran's regional power and military deterrence. In a region dominated by powerful, technologically advanced adversaries, Iran has cultivated a strategy of asymmetric warfare. It may not be able to match the United States in conventional military might, but it can use its geography and specialized capabilities, such as naval mines, swarming speedboats, and anti-ship missiles, to pose a credible threat to a global choke point. This show of force is intended to deter future attacks, reminding its enemies that any conflict with Iran will have far-reaching and painful consequences that extend well beyond the immediate theater of war. Finally, these threats are aimed at a domestic audience. For the Iranian government, projecting an image of strength and defiance is essential for maintaining political stability at home. After suffering humiliating military strikes, the leadership needs to show its people and various political factions that it is strong and unbowed. The parliamentary vote to approve a potential closure, while largely ceremonial, was a powerful piece of political theatre. It served to rally nationalist sentiment and present a unified front against foreign aggression, framing Iran not as a victim, but as a resolute power capable of standing up to its enemies and defending its interests on the world stage. Should Iran ever move beyond threats and attempt a full closure of the Strait of Hormuz, the economic fallout would be swift and severe. The immediate effect would be a dramatic spike in the price of crude oil. With 1/5 of the world's supply suddenly taken offline, global markets would react with panic. Analysts predict that prices could quickly surge well above $100 per barrel, potentially reaching levels unseen since the financial crisis of 2008. This sudden price shock would act as a massive tax on the global economy, hitting every country and every consumer. The cost of petrol, heating oil, and electricity would soar, leaving households with less disposable income and businesses facing crippling operational costs. The ripple effects would extend far beyond the petrol pump. Energy is a fundamental input for nearly every sector of the modern economy, from manufacturing and agriculture to transportation and logistics. A sustained period of high oil prices would lead to widespread inflation, as the increased cost of producing and shipping goods would be passed on to consumers. This could trigger a dangerous economic spiral, forcing central banks to raise interest rates to combat inflation, which in turn would slow economic growth and could even tip the world into a recession. Supply chains, already fragile, would face chaos, leading to shortages of essential goods and industrial slowdowns across the globe. While Western economies would undoubtedly suffer, the most immediate and profound impact would be felt in Asia. Nations like China, Japan, India, and South Korea are the largest customers for the oil and gas transiting the strait. Their economies are veritable engines of global growth, but they are also incredibly energy hungry. A blockade would choke off their primary source of energy, potentially leading to industrial shutdowns, power rationing, and severe economic distress. This dependency means that these Asian giants have a vested interest in the strait remaining open, a fact that complicates the diplomatic landscape and puts them in a difficult position between their energy needs and their political alliances. Ironically, a full closure of the strait would also be an act of profound economic self-harm for Iran. The Islamic Republic is itself a major oil exporter, and the Strait of Hormuz is its primary route to international markets. Cutting off the flow of traffic would mean severing its own economic lifeline, depriving the government of the crucial revenue it needs to function. Furthermore, Iran relies on imports of refined petroleum products like petrol to meet domestic demand. A blockade would be, as U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio noted, a form of economic suicide, crippling Iran's economy just as much, if not more, than its adversaries. This reality is a key reason why a sustained closure remains highly unlikely. This is not the first time the world has held its breath over threats to the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has a long history of using the specter of a blockade as a political tool during periods of heightened tension. Throughout the years, particularly when facing intense international pressure over its nuclear program or crippling economic sanctions, Tehran has often played this card. In 2011 and again in 2019, Iranian officials issued similar warnings, vowing to shut down the vital waterway if the country's oil exports were targeted. These declarations consistently succeeded in rattling global markets and grabbing international headlines, demonstrating the potent psychological power of the threat itself. Historically, however, these threats have remained just that, threats. Iran has never followed through with a full, sustained closure of the strait. The calculus has always been that the risk of catastrophic military and economic consequences outweighs the potential strategic benefits. A genuine attempt to blockade the waterway would almost certainly trigger a swift and overwhelming military response from the United States and its allies, who have long declared the freedom of navigation through the strait to be a core national security interest. The 1980s tanker war provided a clear precedent, where the US Navy directly intervened to protect shipping and engaged in direct clashes with Iranian forces. What often happens instead of a full blockade is a campaign of harassment and intimidation. Rather than attempting an impossible-to-sustain closure, Iran is more likely to engage in tactics designed to create uncertainty and raise the costs of shipping. This can include seizing commercial tankers, deploying swarming speedboats to menace vessels, launching drone attacks, or interfering with navigation systems. These actions fall below the threshold of an act of war, but succeed in creating jitters in the market, driving up insurance premiums for tankers and demonstrating Iran's capability to cause disruption without inviting a full-scale military conflict. It is a strategy of calculated ambiguity and plausible deniability. Today, on August 2, 2025, the situation remains exceptionally tense. The recent US and Israeli strikes have raised the stakes considerably, pushing Iran into a corner where a strong response is seen as a political necessity. While most analysts still believe a full closure is unlikely due to the self-destructive consequences, the risk of miscalculation is dangerously high. Nations across the world, from Washington and London to Beijing and New Delhi, are watching with deep concern. They understand that in this volatile environment, a single misstep or an unintended escalation could ignite a broader regional conflict, with devastating consequences for a global economy that depends on the fragile peace of this narrow strait.